3 things INTJs should never do. Number 1. Let dependency take hold. Freedom. To ask nothing, to expect nothing, to depend on nothing. INTJs cherish personal autonomy, self-determination, and the right to exercise their will as they see fit. This independent streak can be linked to their functions. Their dominant introverted intuition, in its desire to dig deep for insight, has confidence in its conclusions. Convention, consensus, and allegedly common wisdom be damned, if need be. INTJs will trust and back their own views or vision about how things are or should be. NI is often a conduit to independent thought. Their TE means they can organize and manage their life expertly, without assistance, although minions can always be helpful. Their FI affords them an allegiance to their individual values, which inform a huge amount of their lives in ways that people often overlook, mainly because they can be very private about them. In combination with this, INTJs are capable of being one of the least relational types, if they want to be. It's not a given that they'll be that way inclined, but they certainly can be. They do have FE as their blind spot function, so that highly relational and hyper-interpersonal approach to life is not something they put much stock in. Again, they can, but it's not something they naturally value. So their capacity to be independent is massive, and a salient trait of theirs. Based on this, getting entangled or trapped in situations of dependency will be hell for them. This can happen everywhere in life. Romantic relationships, friendships, in the education system, in the workplace, and so on. When INTJs are roadblocked by others, or need to run everything by people, or are obligated in some form to pander, placate, and pussyfoot around people, it will drive them nuts. Losing that freedom will drain them of something integral to how they operate. Number 2. INTJs should never lose direction. The soul which has no fixed purpose in life is lost. To be everywhere is to be nowhere. This is a fairly straightforward one for INTJs. Almost everyone will benefit from an overarching vision and direction in their life. However, some types take delight in making vast, sweeping changes in their life, simply for the cause of variety, change, and transformation. When I make videos, often through reading comments, I learn a lot. For example, many INTJs will actually relate to that transformative impulse. The desire for reinvention, to shed prior skins and emerge different. Change and variety for its own sake is often associated with the function of NE. I think that's a fair association too. Yet, INTJs are NI dominant types, so why would they relate to this? Types are generally going to be good at both versions of their top 2 functions, so INTJs can do both kinds of intuition well. They just have a preference for NI. You'll see this when they're brainstorming. Generating lots of ideas will be really easy for them, but, crucially, they will want to narrow down after creating those options. It's the same overall in their life. They can tolerate change and transformation, but function so much better when there's a plan or vision to their lives. This allows them to act cohesively and with coordination, which appeals to their efficiency-seeking mind. INTJs are rightly described as long-term thinkers and planners. Sometimes they don't even realize this about themselves, because I think there are misconceptions about what it means to approach life in this way. People often equate long-term planning with the complete foregoing of instant gratification, and the delay of any results until the plan is totally complete. That is not the case. It might be better conceptualized as building. Each step of the plan builds on the previous part, but, importantly, at every point, there are benefits. So it's not like it's a thankless task. Quite the opposite, in fact. INTJs will gravitate towards fields, careers, hobbies, or even just experiences that have payoffs beyond the momentary. Whereas some types will happily take things one day at a time, that is less appealing to INTJs. They would prefer to stack their actions in a linear way, to have a roadmap, or be on some kind of path, even if that path is paved with abstract or philosophical notions, such as the way in which they want to live their life, or where they derive meaning from, or how they view themselves archetypically. It doesn't have to be a concrete thing, but that unified, overarching vision is something important for them to hold on to. Number 3. INTJs should never trade time for money. Many of you have probably heard the advice to not trade time for money. Now, it is slightly misleading, because everyone is always trading time for money. It's just that the more financially successful people trade their time for more money. But, despite this, I do think it's a useful sentiment to bear in mind. For some people, and some types, taking more of a brute force approach, or grinding things out, is preferable. There's nothing wrong with this. After all, it's the approach that I personally quite relate to and make use of. But certain people have a different style. I keep saying certain people because these things don't always map perfectly onto a particular type. In the case of INTJs though, I think broadly it does. INTJs will often make intuitive leaps. What does this actually mean? Well, there is a long period of percolation, perceiving, and drinking in various data sources. Then, after that subconscious processing is done, they'll have an idea, insight, or goal that they suddenly want to make happen. Then they'll organize towards that end. So there is an ebb and flow to when they are taking action. Based on this, it makes sense for them to get paid based on results instead of effort. For example, if an INTJ had 2 career choices, or jobs, one of which pays you essentially to turn up and be there, but pays a lot, and one that pays you for results, but pays less, I would usually recommend the latter. When you're paid for results and output, you can optimize, maximize, increase efficiency, develop strategies that improve performance. But when you're paid for your time, you can't change that overall amount of time. Of course, we rarely get a huge amount of control over the jobs we need to do at various points in our life, but when INTJs do encounter these fork in the road moments, it's better for them to be rewarded for what they actually produce, instead of the amount of effort they put in. Another important factor is that when you're paid for results and output, once you've done those things, you now have spare time. Perhaps you guys have read between the lines, and have surmised that I'm trying to build an INTJ army via this channel. Feel free to facilitate this by subscribing to the channel and joining me on the Love Who Discord server. The subscribe button and link to the server are both down below, underneath the video.